Let's begin with a deep breath together now. Welcome, welcome, family. Welcome to the tribe. We have a special live planned for today. Good brother Jack Attuned is joining us for a conversation. And brother Attuned, you should have an option there to request to join the live. And look, I can do that right here. Peace. Wadi, brother. Long time. Conscious bliss in the building. Hey, there he is.
Yo.
Yo, yo. Aligned with the cosmic tribe. That's right.
I'll
So,
play picture.
can everybody hear us and see us loud and clear? How is the connection? Put some hearts in the chat if you can hear us. Well, come on now, y'all. Drop some blessings, a little heart on the right corner. Just tap that a few times. Let us know that you hear us.
Hit some
Let
buttons.
us know that you are aware and present here with us right now. There we go. Loud and clear. I'm not sure what that means.
Received. Message
Yeah,
received.
we got it. All right, there it all is coming in now. Yeah, welcome everybody. My name is Abu Shadi, for those who don't know, and today we have our brother Jack White, who goes by Attuned on his Instagram, and yeah, I feel like there's a potential for some really powerful conversation and connection for all of us present here today. So, Jack, would you like to, perhaps just introduce yourself a little bit and yeah, let us know like where you're coming from and what the work is that you're doing right now.
For sure, man. So, the crux of my work is helping people remove the obstacles to a more kind of soulful life, really, which I think is what a lot of us in this kind of service are doing. And naturally, that started with me, with some obstacles I faced in my life. Movement has been my familiar kind of practice ground. So, for me, injuries in my body speaking up in ways which were painful and difficult to deal with were a good entry point into stuff like psychology and emotional work and relationships. It was kind of my steady reference point. So, what I've done over the years is kind of brought together these parts of my life that felt very separate. Like I studied philosophy, and that felt very separate from moving my body, which felt very separate from um, meditation, which felt very separate from relationships. And gradually, I'm kind of piecing those things together and kind of spiraling around some kind of central point, which just feels like being a bit more alive, a bit more present to my heart, which I know you're all about. So, yeah, that's the gist of it, really.
Right on, bro. Yeah, this awareness of the awareness that's present in all experience. It's that's what makes it feel alive. That is the life that
Mm.
animates experience itself. Yeah, I love how you put that, and to reflect on your share about the injuries. I'd love to hear a little more specifics about that, but I'll just share that for myself and my healing, awakening journey. Um, about 5 years ago, I was hit by a car as a pedestrian on the street, and I was hit in my back, and I had a broken sacrum and slipped discs in my lower spine and my neck, and for 4 years suffered from chronic pain and tried every pathway available to me to heal that and relieve myself of that pain. And it took me to India to study yoga and deepening into the breath awareness and fasting and juice cleansing and all these modalities. And yeah, it was the most profound piece of it all that shifted that pain was recognizing that the the body itself was fine, and that 4 years had passed and my body had healed, but I was like holding on to the trauma, and I was holding on to the pain, and I believed that I was debilitated because I had this injury in my back, so I thought I couldn't do things that I used to be able to do. And it was when I shifted that and I just realized, no, I just need to become stronger. And, and that's ultimately what it took. I strengthened my back. And, I didn't need to realign the spine or something and make it look perfect on an MRI. It was all an energetic and mental blockage that had to be overcome. So
Yeah, man, I relate to that so much. The trajectory of that, um, especially with back and spinal stuff. It's so fascinating. So I had a couple disc herniations in my lower back, and it was a very similar process. Um, I did begin with more rehab and strengthening, but I'd come from a place where all I was thinking about was strength in this very particular force output way. So for me, the rehab was still the same in that I had to go into my beliefs and my emotions and um, all of the fear and the limitations, and start to pick apart why it was that I'd learned to expect pain, and why it was that I thought that my body was against me, when actually my body has always been my advocate. And I've just been kind of like allowing these things to obscure the view of that. Um, so yeah, it's a fascinating process working with pain. And what was so incredible for me to realize was that having a loving relationship to a relationship I'm no longer in, but that had the biggest effect on my back pain of anything I've done. And this
mm,
whole world of how these things connect is such a web, you know, very much a swirl of pieces.
yeah, yeah, it's uh, a lot of the same tests and challenges I find in like every situation, every different type of situation. So it's like, you know, my my partner can say something that triggers me, and then I can like get to the point where I'm like, okay, I don't need to react anymore. And then it's the same test with like the kids. The kids say something and then I react. I'm like, oh shit, like I thought I had that. So it's like you're being tested on every angle, with anything that you claim in your life. And the big, I want to say motto, but just life, uh, what I've aligned my life with recently and in the past year or so is that all is well, no matter what is occurring. And when you say that statement, it's going to be tested, and your boat's going to get shaken. Can you still maintain that all is well, even when you're in a storm and everything's wild? And what I've been noticing more and more is that, even if there's an emotion, a heavy emotion, or there's a heavy stream of thoughts coming in and stories, if I'm triggered and all these things come off like a cascade, where I used to believe that was me and identify with it. I would get pulled by those thoughts into them, and fully identify, and then feel that I need to prove something, that I need to think more about it, that I need to take some action to affect something in my life. And yeah, I was just listening to your post earlier, where you're talking about the cracked screen, or the lens with the cracks and the smudges on it, and how you're the light shining through it, viewing the world through a lens that has become distorted and obstructed. And so you create judgments about the world based on that lens. But the reality is that everything you see is that light shining through. And so if we can see ourselves in that way always, like even in times of hardship, and we feel like very human and raw, that we can still see ourselves in the highest light, and that we can see the people that we have altercations with also in their highest light always. And that in itself neutralizes and resolves so much conflict that could be, when you can just, you know, have that trust and faith that beneath the surface of what is appearing, that it's all occurring in perfection. And that if you zoom out far enough from the chaos, there's order.
Man, I feel you so much on that. I feel like it's perspective and welcoming the zooming in and out of the perspectives has been the biggest thing for me of late, like in relationships especially, realizing that like all of these things that are presented to me in my life that I'm part of, they're they're very much for me, and they are a part of me, and they're a part of my life. Nothing that features in my awareness is an enemy. Like there are struggles and there are challenges and there are things for me to learn and to overcome.
Mm.
But more often it's the case that remembering the perspective that things are here for me and for my development, and that we're here for each other's development, that sort of, it like unproblems my life instead of trying to solve these problems that you could just make more and more complicated by reacting to them, right? And like jumping into
Mm.
the thoughts and all that shit.
Yeah, I just, I've seen it, I guess, now enough times, how, if I react to something personally, what that spirals into. It's just like, it's just not worth it anymore to like take anything personally, because nothing is actually personal. Like everyone's in their own thing. And sometimes people project on you, and sometimes we project on other people. And we just have to be willing to see beyond that always, and see that everyone is inherently innocent. Everything that we do that is, out of alignment is born out of ignorance. So that's why they say Christ forgave everyone for their sins, because we're inherently innocent already. Because if you do something that's out of alignment of your heart, it just shows that you are lacking in that love in yourself. And it's a desperate attempt, using force, manipulation, to get a piece of love, to get a piece of light, and get a piece of power. So we have to see even the darkest things that people do in humanity. It's like, it's a test if we can see them in the highest light still. And if we want forgiveness of every aspect in ourselves, we have to be able to give that to everybody else. And I have this phrase I like to say, or I guess like a way that you can live your life is the grace of the way and the way of grace. And that means to, it means that when you are trusting in the way that things are unfolding and you're walking in the path of what is in full acceptance of it, that you're met with grace along your journey. And the way of grace means that in order to receive that grace, you live a life, with graceful intent for everybody that you meet. You have grace for yourself and for everybody. And that's how that comes to you.
Mm. I vibe so much with the Christ-like way of living, or the values in that. I think that uh, yeah, the sense of grace for me, becoming graceful or living gracefully, has always been something that's happened simultaneously with thinking that I'm falling, or thinking that I've really messed up,
Mm.
or that like there's a humbling. And I think sometimes I've had a tendency in the past to like strive for grace, or it's this striving and it's this reaching away from myself. Sorry, my dog, he wants to go outside.
Oh, he's just singing.
Yeah, he fully sings, man. He started to sing like if I put music on, that's
Does it?
beautiful, crazy. Um, so yeah, the grace feels like it's in the fall. It's like in the fall back to the ground, falling back to the ground, and like, oh wow, I'm not everything that I thought I was, but that also means, hey, I'm just a human and I don't have to pretend to be anything different. That the beautiful irony or non-dual in that, of like returning to God, or returning to like the ground of being is the heart of being. So I really love, yeah, grace is the way and the way is grace. And I feel more and more just through evidence that like through the simplest things, and through the body, and through commitment to loving what's right in front of us, like my dog or my partner or my own body or just the garden or whatever, it's like that's where it is. It's never inaccessible. The
Mm.
moment I think I have to go and create something that isn't here so that I can connect with the creation is the moment when I'm trying to take on like this false godliness, or like become some crazy detached spiritual dude, and that's kind of the
Mm.
antithesis of it, right?
Yeah, yeah, so well said, brother. I resonate with all that really deeply. It's the humility, like you said, and it's really in that moment of surrender where you know I think life brings us to these moments where what is happening is just so beyond you that you have to just surrender to it. Like you don't really have a choice. And I definitely have had that experience with like psychedelic experiences in the past. And I feel like those experiences were like training for relationship, um,
Yeah.
and fatherhood and things like that, because just so many moments where I have a plan and I want things to go a certain way, and I have to drop it. I have to let it go and just see that what is in front of me is so perfect and so beautiful, and that there's nowhere I need to go, nothing that I need to change about it. And, you whatever needs to change will change of itself. And if I'm meant to take any actions, those actions will be taken through me. It's like the Ramana quote, you can't miss what you're here for, and you can't make something happen that isn't meant to happen. So it's best to just remain silent. So it's been profound, man. Like I thought for so many years that I had to um, fulfill all these desires to be complete. And I don't know where that program was inlaid, at what point, but at some point on the spiritual journey, that was like a notion I adopted. And it was like, here's this whole bucket list of all these worldly desires, and I need to fulfill these in order to be free of them. And that is perhaps the biggest trap, because feeding desires only feeds that fire. And yeah, I had to learn the hard way and kind of come to terms with that in a really abrupt way that I would describe as a dark night of the soul. It was like a reckoning with my heart, where I had been out of alignment with my heart, living in the mind, and again, identifying with the mind, following the path that it was taking me on, which it had convinced me was, you know, selfless and in service, but it was a self-fulfilling prophecy. And what I realized in that is that we're here to transcend the self-fulfilling prophecy, which is just a product of programs inlaid into the mechanism that is the ego, which we're then made to identify with. But we're here to fulfill the prophecy of our soul, which is just it's the way, it's the path that is naturally occurring through you in that surrender and humility.
Mm. Yeah, yeah. I think the fabric of everything, the fabric of the world, or the fabric of our body, the ecology or ecosystem of the body, and then the ecosystem of everything around it. Without these ideas about who we are, and without these belief systems and programs, there is literally nothing to separate anything. It's like trying to believe your way into thinking that one little drop in the ocean is actually not part of the ocean, despite the fact that it's moving and being moved by everything around it.
Mm.
It's like so obviously false, and at the same time, um, yeah, we seek this self fulfillment outside of that truth, which becomes a self sabotage. It's like the same thing that self fulfills our identity is the thing which sabotages our connection to what we're already connected with. It kind of takes us, it's an attempt to extract oneself from life and to be somewhere other than where you literally are. And it's an attempt to argue with reality. Reality is,
Mm.
sounds so silly to say it that way, to
Yeah.
argue with nature, to argue with the way that things go. Um, so I think that unification is really quite simple. And man, sometimes it hits like a hammer. Hey, sometimes it's not this feeling of shining light, transcendence. It's a feeling of like suddenly I'm looking at all of the darkness in my life and in the world that I thought wasn't part of me, and I'm realizing that I've been inside that, or that I've been trying to hide from that, and that's made me dark. So like some of the most beautiful times in my life have followed the most terribly painful. And the way I like to see that, whether it's like death or a bout of just feeling a bit crazy or depressed, is that you're kind of, the pain is breaking through the crust that's obscuring your view of yourself and your view of other people. And you're just breaking the crust, and the crust that you think you are is what's hurting. But it's the extraction. It's like ripping off the bandages that you don't actually need, that are kind of,
Mm.
yeah, withering away your being.
Yet the being can never be withered away, can it?
That's a true point, man. It can't. The idea of the being can, and the idea maybe isn't necessary.
There's a great spiritual teacher named Rupert Spira who teaches on non-duality, and he um, he has this example that, that who we are, consciousness is like a blank screen, and that everything that we are experiencing is like images moving on a screen. And so like we're the screen watching the projection, and we're trying to find the screen in the movie, but the screen is beneath the movie, and the screen isn't changing no matter what is occurring in the movie. Whatever images you see on the screen, whether they're really beautiful or grotesque, it's just an appearance of light and shadow and different hues that are moving on a screen. And so I feel like it's really important to remind oneself of that who I am is not the moving pictures on the screen. I'm not the content of experience, but the context in which the experience is occurring. So I'm not any of my thoughts. I am the space in which my thoughts are appearing. And my thoughts are made out of that space, right? There's not actually good thoughts and bad thoughts from that perspective. It's every thought becomes neutral because they're all made of the same substance. They're all just passing by, like clouds in the sky. There's no reason to judge a cloud in the sky, especially if you're the sky. It's just part of you. So yeah, I like to keep that reminder whenever I'm getting caught up in the content. Just to remember that I'm not gonna find God in the content itself, but to recognize that unchanging aspect that is aware through every experience is what I actually am. So it's a lot of quantum shit here. I would love to hear from you about your process, because I feel like it's really unique and interesting. And just looking at your page, there's a lot of unique movements that you've developed, and like you said, this philosophy that is all kind of interconnected with everything that you're teaching. So yeah, I guess I'd love to hear a little bit about your your journey of developing, you know, the system that you're teaching, and yeah, how that's impacted you.
So the crux of my method, or the crux of the process, is basically an unwinding that is happening through me when I move or when I think or relate or teach. And I'm learning that I'm that, and I'm continuously forgetting. That's all it looks like. And I'm continuously grabbing onto things and not knowing why I'm grabbing them. And to make this, to sort of ground this in a practical example, one of the core parts that I'm working with at the moment in my practice and that I'm sharing a lot is standing. And it's kind of like Tai Chi or Qigong forms, or just holding like a horse stance, like a low, wide squat. And this is the perfect example for me where when I'm in that position, in that context, I'm going to be presented with a bunch of things to grab. And there's going to be sensation, there's going to be thoughts, there's going to be beliefs. It's in a sense, um, almost feels like a karmic accelerator. It's like I'm strapping in and sitting into this position and
Mm.
I'm just through stuff, and it's kind of uncomfortable. And so my practice is how released and surrendered can I be while holding my structure and position as like a human, as a man. Like
Mm.
I have a body. I I want to develop my neurology, strong legs, a connection to my tissues at more and more subtle layers. I want to be capable, and it's not helping me to accept that stimulus and to transform and to become more capable by resisting the stimulus. And the stimulus is the thing that I'm not ready for. So I can't resist what I'm not ready for. I have to learn to drop the resistance or unlearn to grab it at the same rate that reality is happening. So a funny thing that happened the other day in this was like I sat into this position and my legs started burning a lot. And I had a more tangible experience than I've had in the past where it got to a certain level of discomfort or pain. And I'm talking muscular pain, not like joint pain and, you know, not like body abuse. It got to a certain level, and I was able to step back, kind of the process of unbecoming my thoughts that we've been talking about, unbecoming my fixations and just connection but not attachment. And I felt that as the sensation arose, simultaneously it was met with a new level of energy, perhaps from that lack of gripping.
Mm.
And the energy and the sense of lovingness and lightness diffused the pain to the point where it felt like if that pain was hot, dense, red, burning, it sort of became like light and white. You know, when you put your finger under a hot or a cold tap, and like for a moment you can't tell whether it's hot or cold, it's just this sensation. And then a couple
Mm.
seconds later, you're like, oh shit, I'm burning myself. It was almost like reversing that process and going from I'm burning myself to like, I don't know what's happening.
Mm.
So it's kind of this
Interesting.
like teaching this is always a puzzle, and really you kind of have to just do your best to embody. Um, so everything is like, how can I explain? Can I explain, or is it all just a bit of fun? But how can I explain this process of like unbecoming the reactions to something which isn't inherently hurting me and is actually beautiful?
Wow. We gotta we gotta sit with that for a sec. Everybody take a breath if you haven't. That's powerful, man. I love what you said about it being a karmic accelerator. That that resonates and it makes a lot of sense, right? It's really anything where you're um, you know, you're pushing yourself to sit with yourself and sit with your body and sit with the sensations. It's going to accelerate your karma because
Mm,
as you stop putting inputs in from the external, it allows everything that's just kind of been on the back burner to, you know, you got to clear the cache. So that's that's what I feel like is happening. And man, this happened to me last year. I took like 3 months off of Instagram, and that in itself was like, you know, just taking away the distraction and all the moments that I used to just scroll mindlessly, not having that escape route anymore. I had a lot more moments of just sitting with myself, and all the stuff that I was pushing back by unconsciously by looking at my phone all started coming to the surface like rapidly. And that was like the start of the dark night was doing that. And you know, you just said in this post recently, I think it's the same one that you were talking about, the lens, that that's undoubtedly part of the process, that when you start to open up the pathways of the body and sitting with the pain and the uncomfortableness, that all this stuff was going to come up to the surface. And as you said in the video, it's so essential to have a support system in place, to have, you know, people around you who have walked through something similar, you know, who can, as you said, hold you to that highest light as all of the darkness is coming up, and as you're in that. And yeah, I'm really really grateful that I had, you know, a few brothers and my partner during that time to witness me. And you know, one of my brothers especially is very much on the same wavelength of what we're speaking on. And yeah, yeah, he was there to remind me in every instance when I was spiraling. and and I reached out to him that, you know, all is well. And just he continued to see me in my divinity, and trusted that whatever I was going through, it was going to work itself out. And it always does. You know, that comes with the trust. The grace comes with the surrender and the humility.
Mm. Yeah, man. Support systems are a beautiful thing. I think that's the other part where the sort of false spirituality stuff, it's been almost hijacked by like the lone wolf growth mindset syndrome.
Yeah.
Like you're uprooting yourself from the soil, from friends, from family, from everything that nourishes you. And a part of the process that I think we're talking about is unwinding and separating all of the layers that get bonded and stuck together, and all of the confusion where you think you're this and you think you're that, but you're not. It's just a feature. And there is a definite um like destabilization when that's happening, when things are being pulled apart, your life or your identity is being pulled apart so that it can kind of reform in a more harmonious or cohesive way. And having those people around and investing in those relationships, and like having the love and the humility and the discernment to support people, because we know that we'll go through these destabilization phases and rebuild phases. And like that's something that's taken me a long time to learn. I was very stuck in trying to do everything by myself. Still comes back sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
But this is the beautiful thing about friends. I was talking to one of my mates up here, and he's like, there's a few of us that will go outside and we'll train in calisthenics bars or whatever, or we'll go for like a smoothie. And we were kind of saying, this is the stuff you do regardless of where you are in life. Like you could have multi millions and it would still be like the highlight of the day.
Mm.
You could have nothing and it would be the highlight of the day.
Mm.
It's beyond that stuff, and that's how you know that there's something there to lean into.
Yeah. 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 The little things. It's like bliss in a teacup.
Yeah, dude.
I was just at the beach earlier today, and yeah, yeah, it was like raining and thunderstorming, and I was just laying, and there was like, must have been at least like 50 vultures, and they do this like spiral vortex thing. And you think about it, it's quite literally like they're like vortexing the energy of whatever like has died there, and like clearing the field of that death, which is profound to think about. And my love, Autumn, shared that with me. Bless her. And but you know, just the simple things. Like I was just laying there watching these birds just do this vortex thing, and everyone's on the beach like doing their thing. And the more I looked at that, the more I was like, this is a psychedelic experience. Like what actually am I looking at right now? You know, when you take away the definitions of everything, and this has been a practice as of late, as of late as well, which is to um, approach experience without defining it or labeling it or having any thought about it. Like, can I just observe the tree without saying tree in my mind, and any other words or adjectives or anything that wants to come up about it? Can I just be with the tree? Can I listen to the ocean waves and not have some sort of description about the experience and the internal narrator come and take me away from it? And it's such a profound shift when you do that, because then you get to meet everything in such a more raw and intimate way, where you don't have that veil, as you said, that's kind of fogging the view of what you're actually looking at. And I remember hearing this years ago from some like quantum physicist bro, and he was like, nothing that you see is even remotely close to what actually is. Like, nothing that you experience in this world through your five senses is even remotely close to what the world actually is, to what reality actually is. And that brings us to that, final conclusion that everything that you see is an appearance on the screen of God. And everything is God. It's not separate from God, but the world doesn't exist as it appears. And that's the point. When they say that the world is an illusion, it doesn't mean that it's not real. It's just that the way that we've been trained to view it isn't what it actually is. And, and if we can get out of the way, it's kind of like there's two timelines happening at once. There's like the soul's path and the heart and the knowing and the trust. And then there's the ego's path, which wants to change everything and wants to achieve and wants the gratification and the pleasure and wants to avoid certain things. And in any moment, we get to, choose what we're identifying with, what path we're choosing to go down. And yeah, no doubt, like doing these practices that you're speaking on, and know, just conscious breathing and practicing movement and being in presence, all these things ultimately ground us into that true reality of what is, without trying to escape it and unwind the the program that we've raveled ourselves all into. And I'll finish that and just say that we think ourselves into the life that we're in, and you don't need to think yourself out. It's more of an unthink yourself out, or a not think yourself out, because it's truly effortless to be yourself, and yourself is the only true reality. It is what is beneath the surface of all the content that is passing through your awareness. But everything exists within you. And that changes everything. Kind of like it puts the power back in your hands, but it also puts the responsibility in your hands. Because what are you going to do with that power when you realize that the whole world is a projection of your mind?
Yeah, dude. Yeah, it's like there's this level or layer of thinking, um, and only operating within that layer and trying to solve that which doesn't need to be solved just creates kind of echoes or microphone feedback. And those simple things like breathing, a hug, sometimes doing some work, sometimes having a problem that you think you'd rather not have, they just collapse the echoes, collapse the feedback. And the house of mirrors just gets kind of still for a moment, and like things are happening again, but they're happening through you, and it's not this illusion that you can try and that you can change what's already here. I deeply believe. Funny language trips me out, man. But how it feels is like, um, in order for the vastness of what's actually happening, or the reality beyond the five senses to be inhabited, um, there has to be, yeah, that unthinking and that collapsing of all of the ideas that things are separate. It's um, there has to be this sense of, like, one of my teachers said, like, you're tasting all of the oranges when you taste one, or you're tasting every flavor when you taste one flavor. You're recognizing that this is a part of the creation and that there is something real here. And what I'm tasting is just one tiny fragment of all that is. I don't need to change that. It's just a recognition. And in the recognition, things kind of collapse.
negate negate yourself.
Yeah, when yourself is based on a negation and it's based on all of these like echoes and creative acts beyond the most basic, then like there is something to be said there for distrusting the self. We say, trust yourself and all of that in common sense language. Um, yeah, which self are you trusting, and what's it made up of?
Yeah. Yeah, Krishnamurti says that the personality is nothing but a bundle of memories that we're attached to, that we think is us. And so he recommended to, essentially die to yourself, like allow your memories to die. They don't have to be a part of you. They don't have to be this this shield that you build up around yourself, this false identity. And his his philosophy was, I think one of the points he was trying to really get across was to find a way to connect to your true self without creating conflict. And so I kind of take that as like not being forceful, that to be yourself is effortless, but that when you need to apply forceful effort, that's how you can discern that now you're like trying to be something else rather than just being as you are. I was gonna go somewhere else with that, but to the wind.
Yeah, there is a massive inefficiency is there in the force. The idea that by forcing and isolating yourself from the energy which permeates things and trying to somehow become an island in this like cause effect mass, the idea that you could isolate yourself and somehow in doing that gain more energy to fulfill yourself.
Mm.
Dude, like, take a tree out of the fucking ground and be like, grow, man. Yeah, maybe it sounds nice, but that's got nothing to do with how the world is. So I feel this, man. I feel this. I think the notion of self-development that exists beyond self-acceptance or beyond embodiment or beyond like resting into being is just, yeah, that's the definition of self-negation, to develop the self at the expense of the true self. And I think sometimes there's this fear that I've had where you're like, oh, if I don't force it, will it happen? And if I don't force it, will I turn into some lazy slob or some like terrible villain? And it, in my observations, resting into being means resting into harmony and coherence with what's around you. And so whatever you need to be is exactly what you will be. If that means rest, you'll rest. If that means it's time to go eat and make something, then you'll go make something.
I think it's powerful too. We can reframe that any action that you're taking can be done in a forceful way, and it can also be done in like a devotional way from presence and power. So with anything that we're doing in our lives, can we first come to a place of wholeness and balance within, where it's like we're not doing that thing because I need something, like I'm not making an Instagram post because I want attention and I need it to fulfill my false identity. Do it from your heart out of devotion, because you know that you showing up and sharing a piece of your experience is going to benefit the betterment of the whole. So I see how, like, yeah, it's just important to really be clear on where we're coming from with anything that we're doing, and what the actual intention is within the action.
This is why I love, I've I've had to unwind this strange conditioning against prayer, you know, against like, I've had to unwind, and I'm still working on unwinding this hardness around living in full reverence and in full like receivership of the beauty of things, because you can live both ways. Like you can have both experiences. You can treat the same event as if it's some terrible burden and mistake, and in doing so
Mm,
you kind of reflect that back at yourself, and you become what feels like a burden and a mistake.
mm.
Or you can have this reverence and prayer towards what is, and kind of humble yourself before it, and in doing so it kind of reflects that beautiful tenderness back at you. And life isn't, you're not causing a fight with life, and life's not causing a fight with you. It's still pain. Things happen, but like what's really
Mm.
happening? Yeah, it's just, it can all feel more like prayer. It can feel more like being torn apart. Like heaven and hell are real, man, and they're creations.
I wrote an email today about, maybe it was yesterday, about pain and suffering, and how pain is something that's, it's a physical thing in your body that you feel, and it's like a signal from your body that's going to help you to prevent further pain, or direct you to tend to something or feel something, release something. But that suffering is a mental creation, where we're identifying with the pain and creating this like mental anguish and this story around the suffering, um, kind of turning it into more than what it needs to be. And so, yeah, I think it's important to recognize the areas in your life where have you taken a pain that is real, and then created a story around it that you're hanging on to, which is causing you to suffer for that pain. It's like you can have physical pain without mental suffering, and you can have mental suffering without there being a physical pain.
Mm.
So these two things don't need to be happening at the same time. And we can distinguish that. And that was, along the lines of what I shared in the beginning about my back, that for years I suffered from chronic pain, is what I said. I suffered from chronic pain because I was identified in this story of I got hit by a car and I have these slip discs and all the doctors say they can't heal it, but I believe I'm going to heal it. And uh, uh, all the things that it prevented me from doing. I couldn't work out in the same way. I couldn't run in the same way, and climb, and yeah, just so many physical activities. But it in a sense, it became like a little bit of a crutch and like a sob story and like a part of who I was identifying with. And it wasn't until I reframed that injury and decided that it didn't have to define me anymore, that the the suffering, I was relieved of the suffering, and in relieving of the suffering, the pain subsided as well. So there was this doctor named Dr. John Sarno, and he looked at thousands of MRIs and x-rays of people's spines who had come to see him for help. And he noticed that there was not a direct correlation between how the spine appeared and whether there was an injury or pain or not. So, for example, somebody would have a totally messed up spine out of alignment and they wouldn't have pain in their back and they were fine. And then somebody else would come in with a perfect spine and they'd have like crazy back pain. And so he was like, what's going on here? And he the theory that he worked with and that he actually helped thousands of people heal from was that the pain was real, but that the pain was a product of suppressed emotion, and particularly anger. And that was connected to the lower back. And yeah, there's so many miracle stories of people who had chronic back pain in sciatica for like 40 years and seen all these doctors and healers, and then they went to a conference with this guy and he's just like, this pain it's a real pain in your body, but it's being created by your brain, your because your body is smart, and it's like it has to do something with the emotion that you're not willing to feel. It stores it someplace in your body. And the reason that you feel physical pain is that your brain literally cuts off oxygen flow to that part of the body. And that's what causes the actual pain in that area. And that's where it's stored, right? It's like a stagnant um, energy stored in that part of the body. And then with the body's intelligence, if you were injured in a particular part of your body, that's where it's likely going to store that pain, and it's going to keep it there. Even if you've healed physically, the pain is still there. And so that is essentially what happened to me, is I realized I'm healed and I'm holding something here. And yeah, in strengthening my body and working through the pain of that and building up muscle and breathing deeply into my back, that ultimately, like I said, healed the suffering and healed the pain.
Mm. Such a fantastic story, man, because it's so reflective of like the whole theme of suffering and pain, and then kind of just sensation beneath the pain, and how things, when no longer being suppressed, are just sensations. And that's like And then maybe beneath sensation, there's a withdrawal of sensation, and there's no sensor and all of that. But if we're talking about levels of separateness, then I think suffering is quite separate, and pain, sort of like a spectrum from suffering towards pain, towards sensation, towards like a cessation of individual sensation, just space. And I do really feel the more I dig into this that, yeah, even pain is just one of those layers. And it's as you say, like pain is an interpretation. It's an interpretation of a signal, and
Mm.
something's occurring on the physical level. But that what's occurring and what we're interpreting can be quite different. Yeah. So I mean, I love telling people that because I love the relief that it brought me when I learned that you know you can have like damage and not be hurt by it, not no pain, and you can have like picture perfect scans, and you can also be like really, really buggered. Um, and so this points us back to the same thing that like things aren't as they seem. They're more wonderful. There's more innate intelligence in it than we realize. Um, and when we hit this point of I don't know how this works, which realistically we hit all the time, we hold on to the idea that we know or that we have to know. But when we hit the point of I don't know, why can't that be the moment where we just say, hey, great mystery, whatever this is, I'm here to be guided. To me, I think that that's a highly skeptical view and a highly spiritual view, if there is such a thing as like one spiritual view. I think skepticism and this sense of connectedness to the all, they go perfectly together.
Yeah, yeah, I've been a natural skeptic my whole life, and my mom tells me I was like 4 years old, holding her hand, walking in preschool, just like, where do we go when we die? Like, where does all this come from? You know, just the simple questions for mom to answer. Um,
Yeah,
but
yeah, dude.
she,
Those, sorry,
yeah,
I
yeah, I
just
was just gonna say, she always taught me that um, she was just like, everything is love. Like that is the substance that everything is made of. And yeah, I didn't get it when I was younger, but I think it was the first psilocybin mushroom trip where I was like, wow, my mom was tapped in. Yeah, I mean, what else? What else would all this come out of? You know, think about the amount of devotion, effort to like for this all to exist.
exactly, man. To sustain life, I mean,
You would have
love and life,
go on.
basically, I think they're the same thing. I think love and life are the same thing. That's all I was going to say.
Yeah, we tapped in on we tapped in on the things. Um, I feel like we can talk forever, most likely, going back and forth. Um, I had another question I wanted to ask you. Yes. Yeah, speaking directly to the men in particular, although it can be for everyone, you know, what are some pieces of advice that you have for brothers just at this time in the world, in the unfolding? Um, yeah, just recognize that the the young men are in a lot of cases lacking in what I would call proper masculine guidance. And I know for myself in my younger years of my spiritual journey, like a lot of the men, spiritual teachers I was learning from were really tapped in and also running a lot of distortions and spells that I've kind of had to break myself out of, where I absorb so much spiritual wisdom from them and also just new spells, spiritual ego spells and things like that. So yeah, with all that in mind, as I would consider a a really powerful and, as I said, real, like, leader and masculine teacher, I would just love to hear what, yeah, you would share for the brothers on their journey.
It's okay to be afraid. You're not meant to stay in fear. It's part of the journey. You are capable of more than you understand that you're capable of. You will have to let go things that you think are essential, which are not. And you're meant for the challenge.
Woo! Codes.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, those are some strong pillars right there.
If there's anything I would add, man, it's just tend to what is right in front of you. And don't be bought by the illusion that you can somehow like let your immediate life fall into ruin and do better somewhere else. It has to come from the immediate and spill outward. So yeah, I think there's a lot of beauty and meaning in that, and there's plenty of work to be done.
Yeah, I always like to say there's no rush, but there's no time to waste. So, show up for life, get done what you got to get done. But see more and more that there's really no effort on your part. Like, it's the more you can sit in the place of witnessing, the more effortless it becomes. And it's a really simple practice to do. Like, I didn't really have anyone to explain it to me in this way years ago, but to just anything that you're doing, stop thinking about it. Stop trying to figure it out and literally just watch it. Like right now, I'm not looking for the next word. I'm just seeing what comes through and watching myself literally. And that's a psychedelic experience in itself. You realize you are the aspect in you that is looking is what you are looking for. And you wouldn't be able to look without first being that which can look.
Yeah, the wobbling and the struggle and it's all not important. It's already there. That's profound, dude. Doing martial arts, I would say, would be one more thing. It's coming up now. I'm like, okay, so these things that I'm saying, maybe they help, and the things that you're saying, I mean, I'm receiving them, and I think they definitely help. I think what's one place where all of these things can come together in a way which doesn't really have to be thought about, where someone who can't grasp or doesn't need to grasp it on the head level can just get into the living of it. And I think martial arts, like a dojo, a good dojo, man, is like a church for men.
It's true. I'm opening myself up to something like that here in Costa Rica. It's definitely that was something I yeah, I did like karate when I was a little kid and taught me discipline. Like it taught me to like respect power and, you know, not abuse it. Um, but yeah, I totally agree with that. That is good training on every level.
Mm.
This brother asks, do you think that just watch yourself be is consciousness? Consciousness is what is aware. You exist as consciousness prior to your mind being able to think about consciousness. And your body and your mind and the world that you exist in all exist within that consciousness which is aware. So really it's you watch the content on the screen. You watch your body move. You watch your mind think and you remain as the watcher. You don't actually get involved in any of it. And, and that doesn't mean that you become disembodied, but the opposite. It means that, as you said before, your awareness permeates the entire experience, every cell of your body. You are present in, in witnessing it. That is what I mean by that. Light, light work, light topics. Oh, and I wanted to reflect on what you said, which is beautiful, which is that, we're talking on some deep things here. I guess trying to explain the unexplainable through the intellect, which inherently can never truly understand because it's existing in the realms beyond the intellect. So, so this information, if you can grasp it on an intellectual level, it's going to help you. But it's also not necessary for you to grasp it on an intellectual level. And that's what I feel like what you're teaching is very profound, and that it's like using the body as the vehicle of consciousness to be in union. It's essentially a yoga that you're teaching that has developed out of your own experience and is adapted to the modern times. So it's really beautiful, and it's what is needed right now. Like the yoga has been whitewashed in a lot of senses. So it just makes sense that there would be kind of a renaissance at this time of beings like yourself who are, yeah, coming forth with the teachings that are applicable for now. Because it's different, like we have phones and social media and pornography and all the movies and music and everything that was programmed into us. And 100 years ago, it was very different. You didn't have this level of programming to break out of. So, or at least, yeah, it wasn't as prevalent, I would say. So, yeah, thank you for doing what you're doing, being what you are.
Yeah, man, it's such a pleasure and a challenge and an honor to kind of get out of the way of it and to share it more openly and to continue to embody it more. And yeah, likewise, man. Likewise. Really, really appreciate just you being here.
All is well. To elaborate with that, and I'd love to feel like this is just such a key code for anybody if you're going through any sort of hardships or difficulties. The great sages teach to be in contentment with what it is. And your ego, your pride, which is really just false honor, will try to convince you that you need to prove your point and be right and fix things and change things in your external reality, that you have problems and you're messed up and you need to heal these things. But there is a lot of power in you recognizing that no matter what is occurring, that your true nature, that your true self is immovable and completely unaffected by it. And that is the silent witness beneath the mind, beneath the body, beneath the sensations and the feelings. And that is always present. So in these moments where your patience is being tested or there's something triggering happening, if you can choose to not react and just return to your breath or surrender into prayer, do some movement in your body, like really just, for lack of a better word, do something spiritual in that moment instead of reacting. And that can be as simple as just witnessing and observing. That's going to be a lot more empowering for you than any abrupt reactive action that you can take in that moment. If you can just stay content, because there's actually no reason, there's no justifiable reason in really any situation for you to get stressed out and worry and like be in internal conflict. Like, show up for life and communicate and take action when is necessary and feel what needs to be felt. But to take things personally and go into a whole trip about things is, it's not actually necessary once you become aware of that. You can just choose to be content with what is, to be desireless in any given moment. And sorry, pause there for a moment. When you are free of desire and free of attachment, there's nothing that you give your power away to anymore. So to really be in your power is to be that immovable self, which stays in contentment no matter what is occurring. And that is like true liberation there, to not have preferences. Ram Dass said, enlightenment is to not have preferences. Be like water.
There's a wonderful little story excerpt that comes to mind, and I can't remember where this comes from or when I heard it. So if anyone knows, comment, or if you know, my friend, then let me know. But a warlord coming into a monastery and saying, there's a monk standing by the gate. And he's like, don't you know who I am? I could cut through you with my sword and not even blink an eye. And the monk says, do you know who I am? You could cut through me with your sword and I wouldn't blink an eye. And then the warlord bows to the monk, steps back, and leaves. And I think this is the way of the peaceful warrior, where you are not disassociated from life. You're very much with life, but there's a recognition that you are inherently connected and complete. And so anything that comes to you that you would otherwise be afraid of is an offer to leave the contentment that you're now speaking about. All of these things are offers to jump into belief games and thought games, and you absolutely can, and sometimes you will without realizing, and that's the path, but it is an offer, and you can create your own games, or you can just recognize the games being played and refuse to play one. So yeah.
Yeah, and you can't really go wrong, you know. And that's why it's like you got to have grace with yourself at the end of the day. Just see, like, everyone is doing their best for where they're at and what they've gone through. Even if it appears like someone's lazy, it's just every infinite factor in the universe has led up to them being right there. It's not their fault, you know. And at the same time, you have the choice in any given moment of how you're going to use it and where you're going to direct your attention. So we can't hold people at fault or judge people, but we can discern what is true and what is in distortion.
Yeah, I see one of my friends said it this way: there is love and then there are conditions. And the misunderstanding is trying to achieve love through conditions. It's conditionless. There are conditions. It has little to do with love at all, but it's okay that there are conditions. That's the human condition. There are needs, there are choices in that sense, while also there is love.
Boundless, unconditional love is, I think, a close way to describe what we are. That's really beautiful. Um, yeah, love appears in various forms, but it is all love. Well, some uh, some things for all of us to contemplate upon.
Yeah, good
Really,
way to for my morning, man. Gonna be just cruising on this vibe for the rest of the day. Thanks for having me on here to chat with you.
yeah, man. I trust it's just the beginning of some beautiful collaboration and yeah, and brotherhood. And I feel like that's what we're all, what we're here for. Truly is the deeper connection and support with those who we recognize to be our reflections. And that's all of us here, you know, and that's the thing to recognize. That's what the whole namaste is about, right? It's like the divine in me sees the divine in you. It's become like a cliche thing, westernized phrase, but it's profound if we take away um, all the programming around it and connotations with that, and we recognize the truth of this statement that all is self, and that within you, which is aware of this experience and which is aware through all of your experiences, the same within me that is aware. And love is the proof that we are all connected. You look in another being's eyes, and for some reason, there's something within you that has love for that being, whether that's like a dog or a cat or another person that you don't know. You just see things as they are. You you see that everything that you see is not separate from you. As Ramana Maharshi said when someone asked him, "How should I treat others?" he said, "There are no others." There's your answer.
Selves. Selves.
Inviting everyone to just be effortlessly. The silence of your being is present beneath your thoughts, and you can catch it in between each thought if you focus on that space right there. It's already here. God is immanent, inherent in all that is, always. Big love to everybody who joined us today. And yes, this is recorded. We'll post it on my page. So if you're just joining in with us, you can catch it in your own time. And I don't know how long we've gone here, but I know there's a lot of gems and wisdom for everybody here. And yeah, thank you so much, Jack. Should I call you Jack? I feel like calling you Attuned, but
Whatever you like, man. Yeah, whatever.
Brother Attuned. Wizard, are we using birth names or wizard names today? That's the question.
Yeah.
What does
Well,
it mean to be attuned?
life is music, and you're part of the string.
Woo! We just vibing, just vibrating.
Yeah, man, that's it.
Beautifully said. Um, and yeah, perhaps one more thing you can share before you go is, yeah, how can people work with you and learn more about what you're doing? What's the best way?
I have a link in my bio to my website, and there's a couple of ways to work with me on there. One to one and through a 9-week program, which is starting on the 12th of August, this one. And then there's a bunch of free resources below that, a couple of paid resources too that you can click on and explore, like a standing guide, kind of like meditative standing, applying some of the things we've talked about in a more physical, less intellectual way. Um, and yeah, if you're interested in exploring this from multiple angles, like body, relationship, thought to go beyond thought, then you might find something interesting there. So, yeah, thanks for tuning in, and yeah, I hope I see you somehow. Or I hope you let me know how some of the practices go if you try anything that I'm offering there in the link in my bio.
Yeah, everybody, don't be a stranger. Feel free to reach out to either one of us, and yeah, here in love and service and for the betterment of all that is. We are aligned, we are present, we are attuned, all is well, wholeness.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Love, love, love.